Okay, my guest today is actually a really good friend of mine, Eric Conwell, who owns CVL Partners, or is it CVL Builders?
No, Partners. You got
Partners.
it right.
Got it right. Okay, cool. So I'm really excited for this episode, even more than most, because we've been friends for a long time, and I think today I'm going to finally understand what it is that you do. So I'm looking to peel back that onion. So let's get started today. Just if you could, what is CVL Partners and what do you do?
Yeah. So I would say I've never been asked that directly, so I appreciate the...
Be a good thought exercise.
So we have some different small business lines that, and it's usually in partnerships with either vendors or investors. It's all real estate related.
Uh-huh.
And I think that the best way to put it, so it's CVL, it's kind of it's not a great name. It's that the businesses have some element of craft, value, and labor, which is just hard work. It's literally the Latin word for hard work. I didn't know it was a Latin word.
Thought it was an English word.
And it incidentally is kind of like this startup-y, like the word civil without the I's, which is what I always have to do when I'm telling anyone on the phone. Because they're the worst letters for spelling over the phone. Each one sounds like a different letter. But the got started, so my background is in with real estate hedge funds. I really wanted to work in investment management and was getting out of school just before the crash, and really difficult time to get onto Wall Street, and had ultimately got a few offers, but went with this smaller boutique hedge fund that was some ex-Goldman Sachs guys that worked in the real estate and mortgage debt space. And so they were the team actually that built the first mortgage-backed security at Goldman Sachs, which was really the shop that made mortgage-backed securities explode in the 80s. So Lou Ranieri was preaching the gospel to everybody, and once Goldman picked it up, it became a mainstream product.
Okay.
So cool spot to watch everything implode. And,
yeah, for sure.
Because
zero.
No one knew what was going on. It was like cool to watch all of these hearings because we always had CNBC up and stuff. And my bosses were like, "Oh, that's completely wrong. They have no idea what they're talking about." But kind of ended up getting focused on distressed properties all over the country because it was just, that's what there was.
Yeah, there's a lot of them too.
Yeah, so we were a value-oriented hedge fund and looking for just kind of one. In fact, I think it was like Martha Coakley or somebody in a meeting said to us that we were kind of the cleanup crew for the housing crisis. And so
that's a good way to look at it.
Problem stuff, and banks are in the business of re-lending other people's dollars, ideally the feds. They're not good at housing or fixing housing issues. So it was what I ended up really gravitating towards was this, because usually there were still borrowers in these properties that we would own. And so there's a human element, and having to scale it, because it was somewhere between, at the smallest, we'd have like a 25 or 50 property pool of loans, up to, 10,000.
Wow.
So one of the things that was great is that the fund was really, really all about getting, boots on the ground. And so I was cutting my teeth driving to places you've never heard of. And
the fund would purchase the homes and add those to a group that essentially people would invest in that group of owned properties. So and there's people in the houses some of the times.
Yeah.
So was that where you were driving to, is to like have human interaction with the people inside the
Usually it's a good question. Sometimes, yes. Usually it was just to lay eyes on the property and to actually see what it was really like. Because these kinds of things, properties, they're on dirt. You can't just abstract them to a spreadsheet.
Yeah.
That was a lot of times, because we usually would have capital partners from like you know, Blackstone or BlackRock or, you know, major New York money groups, would usually be some sort of senior or junior capital in whatever investments we were doing.
Mm-hmm.
And most of those guys that were kind of my counterparts in New York wouldn't understand that it was just a row on Excel to them. And they were trying to just bucket rows of you know, in Excel together and make decisions and simplify, which is good. It was their job.
Yeah, they wanted to understand in 3 minutes whether or not this is something they want to be involved in.
And it was very difficult because you being on the ground, you realized it doesn't matter that it's a model match 3 houses down. That pile of weeds is that woman's garden. Like, that's her. And like, all of those chips are like stories of her kids, and she's emotionally invested. And so for me, some of the ahas were that homes are consumer product goods. Mm-hmm. They're not like assets like they're told we are. And for most people, like the majority of people. And the goal with the fund and then the goal with stuff that we started was, you know, if a housing situation isn't going to work out for somebody, mm-hmm. because a lot of times they might have the willingness, but not the capacity. They might have the capacity, but not really the willingness there for some reason. And so it's creating this really fair and useful vision of their next housing situation.
So in a way, you're coming across people that for one reason or another, they can't maintain the home they're in. And rather than, but tell me if I'm hearing it right, because I think we've talked about this a little bit before. So rather than kicking them to the curb, so to speak, you tell them, look, there's an end in sight, and we want to help you go to your next place. And then do you like essentially coach that person on how to live within their means, or whether the means are money or the means are discipline, how to find the next place and get to it?
Yeah, on a scale, that's totally right. On a scale level, we're trying to connect them to debt counselors because we can't do that at scale.
Right.
But a lot of it was informed by this guy, Albert Bandura at Stanford, who pioneered and I could be getting this totally wrong, but
nobody's
really
fact checking. Go ahead.
Pioneered this concept of self-efficacy, where he found, and again, I might have this wrong, but he was working with like drug addicted clients, and I think he was a psychologist. Again, all the facts are disputable, but found that that a lot of these drug addicted people couldn't actually see themselves not having a life with drugs in them. Mm-hmm. Like they just literally, it was in their mind, they were going to live until they would die and they'd still have drugs in their life.
Well, yeah. I mean, even if you look at even people with like people that smoke cigarettes or drink alcohol, there's a part of your personality you define with the habits that you have, right?
100%. Yeah, it's I'm just reading James Clear's book Atomic Habits, which is great so far, and he talks
about habits.
Yeah, Atomic Habits, and he talks about how you can't sustain activities and behaviors that contradict your self-belief, mm-hmm. and so you might abate your smoking for a little while, but if you believe that you're a smoker that's trying to quit, as opposed to like, I'm not a smoker.
Right.
Once I was, but that's not my identity. That it matters, that it makes a difference. And that's backed up, and Albert Bandura, I think, definitely found it. And he found he actually had to tell stories. So he couldn't say, hey, Adam, stop smoking or stop doing drugs. He had to say, hey, Adam, I have this friend named Smadam, not you at all, but really
look alike.
Really good looking, strong. And he was really addicted to drugs, and he felt the same thing. He couldn't imagine a life without it. And then he actually made some decisions to start not doing it, and his life is so much better now. And he would just fictionalize sometimes a story, and people would all of a sudden start believing it and abstracting it back to themselves.
Is it one of those projecting the you want to be and then chasing it?
A little bit, but having like a guide so that you have the benefit of being able to suspend disbelief. Like we could all probably imagine most movies, but they wouldn't nearly be as satisfying as going and watching, Bradley Cooper do it.
Well, it makes sense too, because all of us, to a degree, we are our identity. At least we identify with the current identity, and to change it is difficult, because it means you have to reflect and think about the things about yourself that are not good, that you don't like, and you have to face that. And in order to change it, you got to face it. You have to look right at it. And maybe his method, you're still going to have to face it, but maybe it helps them get the first step by saying, oh, it's not me, it's Smadam. Smadam has this problem, but I'm a lot like Smadam. So if he can do it, then I can probably take that step.
100%. It was just that, that sort of somehow externalizing it and having somebody else tell you you're okay. And I think, it's been a while since I've read the actual papers, but I think at some point the participants even knew that it wasn't true and it was still effective. It was like, we're so trained to believe stories.
Yeah. Well, and the mind is very powerful, and the mind can be easily tricked or just motivated by stories. Kind of like placebo effect. It's a thing.
Totally.
It's a thing because the mind is incredibly stronger than we understand. It can give you a sugar pill and it can cure your arthritis, for a certain amount of people. That's bananas.
Yeah. Well,
that means the brain can cure things.
It's a story. Like, it really is just, hey, we're going to do a little play, and then I'm going to help you believe the story. Here's a sugar pill. That's part of the play.
Right.
And it's kind of, my wife has a line that I really like. When something is bioavailable, where it's like, you can take something, like you could take a supplement, but if it's not the right chirality or something like that, you could have it in your body and your body could need it, but if it's not in the right form, then it's not bioavailable to you, so it leaves.
Like shitty vitamins.
Yeah, exactly, like shitty vitamins. And so the line Arista says is that story makes truth bioavailable, where it's like, oh yeah,
I like that.
Give me a story, and all of a sudden it enables me to uptake it. And so
story makes truth bioavailable.
Yeah, I write down a lot of the stuff she says.
That's a really interesting one.
Anyways, to bring it back to what we were doing and what we've done, and that was one part of it, because it's a weird process. Like if you tell a story in one way, I mean, if you have somebody writing a paper, it's like, oh man, this guy was kicking people out of their homes. And that's a weird business to be in.
Right.
Now, a lot of times the homes are already vacant. I would say that, it was a variety of things. Sometimes the people could get back and start making payments, which was fantastic.
Well, knowing you like I do, you're not a transactional person. You're not going to view a home as too bad, get out. That's you just. I don't think you could have the job if your job was too bad, get out, slumlord. Just
it couldn't. I've had, to be clear, I've had really difficult. I've had, I had this huge portfolio in Massachusetts. Actually, it was one of the first things that got me to Massachusetts, and we had a few slumlords who were our borrowers, and it was really weird and difficult to experience it and it wasn't like a oh, this person is kind of a quote unquote slumlord. It was like we had their renters coming and saying, slipping us notes.
Oh, wow.
Asking us to call the police and things like that. It was like, so it was weird because I thought
that adds another whole element to your business, right? I mean, now you're getting involved with casework.
No, it's bizarre. It's really, really, and that was one of the fun parts, is that you get all types. I had a borrower who was able to get back and start paying again. And I probably shouldn't say this because it might be a public thing, but her name was Rosemary Gilchrist, sweetest old lady. I think at some point she disclosed to me that she was trying to get from 4 packs of cigarettes a day to 3 packs, but not necessarily for health reasons. She said for money reasons. And she had found a way to get back to making her payments, and she would call me. She had somehow gotten through. So usually you work through a mortgage servicer who has all the licensing, and they handle all the communication with the borrowers. and it's different in every single state. She had somehow gotten my number directly, and every week would call me without fail. And it was like, and she had this very distinctive voice, and she was a really sweet woman, and she would just want to talk. And she would usually ask me what her balance was again. It was usually unchanged from the week before. But it was like the gamut of what you dealt with was just all over the place.
Yeah.
And I did initially think that it was just a matter where, and all politicians would want you to believe that, oh, these, poor people and, the big bad capitalists have hurt their feelings, and I discovered somewhat quickly, like, wow, there is almost no borrower in this pool that wasn't complicit in this process. Mm-hmm. And I called it the firmed out approach, where I couldn't just be nice. I found just being nice made people just walk over you.
Right.
And we had all of these tools, and we had built into our model, we had raised extra money so that we could give some to borrowers. And if you led that too fast, they just wanted, well, then just give me $100,000. It was like,
give me the money.
You had to create these boundaries, which was interesting. And you had to have consequences, and you had to stick to them. But we found that at the end of the day, for me, I knew that this was something that had to happen. It wasn't sustainable for that person to be living in that property,
right,
and not paying anything. There was
the proof for that was already there because you're now involved.
Yeah,
right. I mean, we already know that that's the final answer. And you made an interesting point about the people you're coming across, and it's not the fairy tale that politicians would lead you to believe, where of course some of them are. Right, some of them, the few and far between, are probably nice people that just came across something, but most of them probably got themselves into a world of shit, which I think it's interesting because most people never see that, and you have to think about it to actually try to internalize the feelings that you might be having, where you're getting involved in the end of a housing crisis with people who overbought and then maybe can't buy, or they can't they can't make what they need to make happen for the house. Whereas, like, we come down really hard on police officers, and we don't think about the fact that police officers spend 95% of their day being lied to by the worst people out there, because that's who they interface with. They're not interfacing with the nice old lady who wants to bake them cookies. Sure, her too. She's one out of every 900 people they come across, and a lot of those people are thieves, drug addicts, because those are the people that attract police attention, right? So if you spend your whole day with people trying to lie to you about the house that you now own, it's gonna create a jaded relationship. But I think you've done a really good job from the outside as being friends with you, where you're not jaded and angry, and you're not pilfering the houses. You've got a plan.
Yeah, it's a great point. It's a really difficult thing, because when you discover that usually the narrative that someone brings to the conversation is not going to be it's not going to be the narrative solution, and how you go about guiding the story, and also doing your best to create a dignified, it's a difficult situation.
Yeah.
Getting overextended is not an impossible thing. I think it's a very normal thing.
Yeah. It's very easy to have it happen.
Yeah. And it's a very vulnerable thing to have happen. One of the things I thought was really interesting, there was this good article, because in the 80s, there was this dream of democratizing banking where everyone would be reduced to a number. And so you can't have bias on numbers. They're just a number. And this thought is, the issue is if we can make everything completely fair, then we'll be able to lend, and there will be, that lack of bias will create more opportunity, which I think largely did. Mm-hmm. But some of the unintended consequences, because banking used to be super boring. I mean, your community bank was the one that lended to that community. They would, sell to Fannie Mae, but it was a pretty small portfolio that they had. Uh-huh. They'd retain all the servicing. And so all the neighbors. And it was this big community business. Well, as mergers and scale happened in the 80s and 90s, that didn't happen anymore. And so the result was, as everyone became a number, trust. There was just no trust either way.
Right.
No one had any story on anybody.
So you lose the fabric that it used to bring to the community.
Yeah, completely. It was gone. And I think that's still one of those things when I step back and look at like housing and look at some of where we're at in 2020 now, it's, and you know, we always feel like we're kind of like at the end of history because we're at the most current part of our history.
Right.
But we're actively writing what someone else will be 150 years ago for somebody.
For sure.
And all of our issues will be like, well, duh, why didn't you?
Right.
And so I kind of feel like where we're at is that we're starting to work on the problems of how do you deliver solutions at scale for 1 billion people? Like that's the problem we haven't figured out.
Mm-hmm.
And we're starting to use technologies enabling us to solve billion-person problems. And I think we're at like 8 billion people, and by 2050 we're going to be like 10 billion, and they think it's going to stabilize around there.
What makes them think that?
Solving billion-person problems. It's always been like before the joint stock company, it was you were solving 1,000-person problems usually, and then it got
for most of our history, you're solving 200 people problems.
Yeah.
Most of human history, you're solving 200 people problems.
Yeah. And 200-person problems are different than the billion-person problems.
Right.
But
they do involve that fabric, that community, that I'll give Eric this hammer because I know he's going to give it back to me. Or I know that when I need an egg, he'll give me one from his chickens. You know, there's...
Yeah, precisely. That's a 200-person, that's there. It's not there anymore.
No.
Like it's an interesting, I heard this stat that I can't even quote, but the takeaway from it was that college educated people are much, much more likely in America to live over 50 miles away from a relative. Mm-hmm. And that we're much more likely to have, like it used to be that we said, I want to say it was in the 70s that we had 4 close friends. And now we have on average 1 close friend. Mm. And 25% or 24%, I think it was, of people as of like 2010 said that they have 0 close friends.
I believe it. Yeah. If you just peel back a layer and look at almost all the families I know have 2 working people as the heads of the household, which right away takes away half your life, or more than half in today's day, because people don't work 40 hours anymore. By the time from leaving in the morning to getting back at night, you're talking about a 60-hour week for a normal regular job. Someone who's not even grinding, right?
Totally.
So you're basically pulling one whole world out of a family where there used to be, and I'm not saying good or bad, I'm just saying there's a difference where the mom's not there anymore, taking the kids to a friend's house, doing this, going to the park. That's not happening. So the kids are also growing up isolated and with video games and devices to a degree we've never seen. So maybe it'll be our evolution, right? Maybe that combined with some mental changes are going to trigger what's next for humanity. So I'm not going out on a limb on good or bad, or we need to go back to family values, although not that they're bad, but it's a notable difference, right? I mean, it no longer exists. So I believe that we don't have friends anymore. I mean, I work to try and keep the relationships I have. And even that's difficult because, you want to get together, and I want to have my friends come over to the house and sit by the fire pit and talk, but that's not easy to do often because people are busy.
Not easy at all. And the more you're in cities, the more it's a weird thing. It's like don't invite me over to your house. Like, I don't,
weirdo.
No, we can meet at a bar and have a drink, maybe.
And then we'll tweet about it.
Yeah. And it's weird because it's not, like this first happened to me actually in Boston because when I lived in San Diego, people were a lot more like, I was in a community where, dinner parties and stuff was a lot more common. Mm-hmm. And I remember inviting a colleague over for dinner and like, they gave me this look like I asked him to undress in the middle of town or something. They were like,
it's so weird. I've experienced that too, though.
From walking, they're like, why don't we do drinks? And it totally like my week was wrecked. I was like, did I cross a boundary? Like, what did I like? And I just discovered living in cities now, that's like kind of a weird question to ask. It's like,
But it's not a weird question to ask. It's a weird reaction to have. It just might be the common reaction, right? I mean, it's weird to not have close relationships with people you can look in the eye. It's weird to not have people you can rely on or people you can talk to. It's weird to have most of your relationships be one way. Because your relationships are with your phone or with your TV or, with your tablet or with whatever it is that you're interfacing with, which is not a person.
To me, I am going to go out on a limb, and I'm going to say I think that this is a growing pain of learning and scaling. And I think that we're going to have some big cultural health problems. We're going to get sick. I think we're already we already
are, yeah. But look at the rate of diabetes or of back problems and neck problems from just looking like that,
Well, I think that I recently heard some, and I want to actually look at the research because it was said as a quote in a book, but that loneliness is worse for your health than obesity. Man, that is so true.
And what about when you combine the two?
Yeah,
because you're not outside, you're not walking.
Yeah,
you're at a desk all the time, or you're sitting on the couch.
It's so pervasive that it's and I think one of the weird parts is it's very difficult to admit to somebody your loneliness.
Yeah, for sure, because you feel weak saying that.
Yeah, there's are you about to ask for resources that I can't give?
Right, you're not going to try to come over for dinner, are you?
Yeah, I mean, and to be as much as I want to share, that to somebody, if someone shares that to me, it's to me, I've been encouraged by the, I think that the vulnerability and, what's her name? The vulnerability woman, Brene Brown.
Right.
Yeah, I think it's good, but I take issue because I think it's a little bit bougie. Because vulnerability is so cultural. There's certain things, my father-in-law was born in Iran and is Kurdish. And for him to say certain things to me would be normal or maybe appropriate in his culture. And for me, I'm whoa, don't share that.
Right.
Or vice versa. I'd share something and it would be offensive. And so it's
or just the way
turned into a little bit of a cultural signaling of hey, how similar are you to me?
Right. Well, yeah. And there's for sure, we seek similarity. That comes back to when we were the 200 people groups, the little communities and villages. We do seek it, right or wrong. We seek it because it helped us survive for most of the time our genes were being programmed. So there is that. But there's also now we live in cities, clusters of 8 million, 10 million, 20 million. I don't even know how many people are in LA now, half the world.
Yeah.
It's
4 billion.
Yeah. It's
exactly.
We're adapting to it. It's different. It's freaking people out, and it makes anxiety, at levels we've never seen before because our bodies don't know what to do with our environments anymore. They didn't grow to be in a city. They grew up they grew up to be in nature where a lot less is happening. And your eyes are built for scanning for movement in a tree line. Then you stand in Times Square, whoa, oh my God.
Yeah, it's absolutely, I think that's one of the weirdest parts is that this phenomenon, as we are growing collectively to the winners of our culture are people that are solving scalar problems, right? That's the Amazon, Jeff Bezos,
Musk.
Solving these scalar problems because you don't really get rewarded anymore for solving 200 people's problems.
Right.
It used to be that you had all these towns everywhere because, is there 200 people? Is there 1,000 people? Great. And then you can solve each other's problems.
Yep. Put up a school, put up a church. Let's do this.
Yeah. And now it's we're better at solving a lot of these problems. So it's no, I'm not going to buy that little thing from you because somebody already engineered a really good one of those things. And then they mass produced it and they've help solve it for lots of people. It's a good thing, but this loneliness and this the human element in this thing is a very weird one, and I think it's confusing for everybody involved.
Yes,
I think just our elections. I'm sorry, I'm really tangenting, but I think it's evident.
Go nuts.
Even our election process is much more of a beauty contest. Malcolm Gladwell was talking about doesn't actually matter.
It's a popularity contest. Donald Trump won.
Yeah, it's like if you were going, like if this person was getting hired for a job at like McDonald's or anywhere, like any standard where there's employment laws in place where you can't discriminate based on whatever, and usually you don't even know their name and gender when you're looking at all the candidate stuff, so that you just go based on their qualifications. None of the people that were presidents would be presidents. Like it would.
I think it's unrealistic to have a president and expect them to be able to run the show. I don't think you can have one conductor. There's a lot of things. You know, I've never met anybody that can know everything about finance and the military at the same time, like strategic military operations or finance or housing or healthcare. They're all gigantic buckets of very complex information with very confusing ups and downs and rights and wrongs, and the obvious answer very rarely makes any sense if you unpack the issue, because they're complicated issues. How's one guy supposed to drive that ship, or girl? How's one person supposed to drive that ship?
I think the embedded wisdom was that they knew that everybody had to believe in this person.
We need a council of elders or something. We can't do it anymore.
I think that they knew that everybody had to believe. They had to look and be like, I believe in you.
Yep.
Because if you don't believe, it's that story part. Everybody had to tell themselves the story that this is that this is working.
And there was a time that worked, and what people believed in the president and would rally behind. But wouldn't you say that time has come and gone?
It's certainly got to be reformed in some major way, because it's not what it used to be. It's not at all what it used to be, and and I think this is one of those scalar problems where we have to figure out.
It is.
Because I'm not persuaded by the billion solutions for a billion people answer necessarily, but maybe that's it. Maybe it's that we have to get back to that 200 person tribes kind of thing.
Well, at least we have to figure out ways to mimic it or to bring things back in that way. Yeah, because the billion solutions, it can't work. You can't scale like that. Everybody's life can't be individualized. That's why you get to do your hair how you like and wear the clothes you want. That's your individuality. Go ahead and do that. I'm making light. There's also art and all kinds of stuff. But the point is, find your own individuality. But the way society works is we find what ties us all together, and we focus on those things, and that's where we come together.
Yeah.
Without it, you don't have a society, and then you have these an amplified version of what we're already talking about, where you look at your neighbor as a stranger. You're not connected.
That's what, so for me, because I view everything through the lens of housing, everything, but it's been the lens of my career, and it's what I get motivated by. And one of the things, and it's been the evolution of the business. So, is thinking through what it looks like to basically, I think with a lot of, what I've seen and from the vantage point that I've had is that housing could be a lot better than this. Mm-hmm. Most people's housing situation, except for the pretty darn wealthy, is kind of a shrug. And this is what I got.
Supposed to buy a house now. I guess this is what they tell me I can afford. I'll look at these houses and pick one.
Yeah, we almost protect ourselves from aspiring in that housing space because we know we can't have the Chip and Joanna Gaines or just the gorgeous Architectural Digest home.
Which is ridiculous.
It's not available.
Yeah.
It's just not in the, and so we have these very weird options with these very, sorry, my dog just came in. He occasionally comes in to check on me and brings a toy. For me, I started, and I think the other thing that was very weird to see within, and I really appreciated seeing the housing through the lens of mortgage, because I realized that the consumer is not really it's one of those industries where the consumer is the byproduct of the transaction.
Yeah.
The transaction is really going on between, Fannie Mae and money center banks, and then in the secondary market of trading the instrument.
Right, and they're gambling on you. They're gambling on you, and basically they own the house, they own the investment, they own the transaction, and they're just counting on you to fill the coffers, or they'll take it.
Yeah. And it's this weird process where it's like, wait, the homeowner itself, we had a lot of big gains in our responsiveness. In it showed up in our revenue just by working with a designer to redesign the statements, because we found that people didn't understand their statements. It was just confusing, and so they were like, I'm going to kind of ignore it.
Yeah, sure. Don't read it,
and
right?
So
it's too many words.
Yeah, and so it was using 4-color printing, and which is difficult for a lot of servicers because they're on really paper thin margins. But it's like, but we were like, yeah, let's just throw anything at the wall at this, because we need to make some impact. And so it was, how can we think through it through the lens of a borrower trying to do this thing and get what they want? Because it was this weird, kind of coming of age aha, where it was like, oh wait, this industry isn't made for you. It's hacking the fact that you need a place to live.
Well, it doesn't have to be done either, right? The industry doesn't have to be baked. You can change, you can innovate, you can do something new. So essentially you're in Massachusetts, you've got this huge network, for lack of a better word, of distressed properties, and you're trying to figure out new ways to interface with the borrower to create a better solution, which is they're getting out to their next home, or they're recovering this one, depending on what the reality is.
Yep. So with investor capital, we bought from, and it's usually either banks that have gone through some sort of FDIC event and they're closing down, or they've been pulled together because their initial attempts to help most of these borrowers were really, really poor. They were just like, okay, 2 letters, and then we sold your loan to somebody who will deal with this.
Yep.
And so we were dealing with a lot of challenges, and there was a ton of scars and a ton of, it was the definition of like a learning curve. But it was, again, really cool place to cut my teeth on, one, because I saw that the mortgage industry it's like the plumbing in your house. It's not that complex, but try changing it after the house is. It is just really so deeply embedded, and so many things are layered on top that it's like, you can't change any of that stuff.
Right.
And for me, I was always wanting to get closer to the house, closer to the customer. And so one of the things, and what we've been working on recently, has been kind of, I think, an evolution of the original dream of, look, because we had a ton of these properties. Some of them would be converted to rentals. Some we would sell. It was just based on what neighborhood.
So you kind of like auditing each of the properties and seeing which direction would be maximum gain for that asset. Like, should this be a rental? Should this be, for lack of a better term, flipped as a house for sale? Or
yeah, exactly. So we're renovating a ton of houses.
And then you're doing the renovations too.
Yeah, so we're renovating most of the time through third-party vendors, because you can't measure that many at that time.
But you're kind of the GC, or managing the GCs, but you're hiring the contractors and telling them what you want out of the homes.
Yeah. So it's funny because my path has been back towards the GC route, because I've been wanting to understand the product at a more granular level. And I have a lot of construction in my family, and worked construction all my teenagers and stuff like that. So I don't feel unfamiliar on the construction site, but when we moved to Seattle, my wife got a job at Microsoft, and I actually got my GC license because I wanted to manage the trades directly.
No kidding.
That's cool. I wanted to feel the project management and again, it goes back to that uniqueness of every property. And there were certain lessons and certain rules that I followed that I kind of wanted to test, and certain ones didn't matter. Certain ones, it's like, oh yeah, holy crap. Like, don't that's a real, I think for me, one of my scalar lessons is if I'm managing a lot of renovations and I'm representing the capital, I've got my own investors, I'm trying to go as minimal as possible, which I hate because I feel like I don't get to do the service that I want to realize the value.
And it's minimal in order to maximize the ROI. Is that the thinking?
Yeah. And also minimize the risk, which is kind of different ways of saying the same thing.
No, but they're different but at the same time, you got to come across, maybe it's the rare gem, but you got to come across properties where the higher end will be a better fit. And if you buy up a $3 million house that needs work and you put all Lowe's fixings in it, it's not going to sell.
100%. Whenever you're in a neighborhood, you're looking at that, where is that average price per square foot that it sells for, and trying to not over improve it for a market, but trying also not to, to me, those are my favorite markets.
How many markets are you in?
Right now, if it's across the various LLCs, we're in, 30 cities.
So that's hard to know though, right? Neighborhood by neighborhood, what's the median?
Really hard. Actually, I got the chance to work on some, I use the word technology, but it's really math. Worked with some really cool mathematicians and engineers to develop this predictive engine, that meant to be a pricing engine and a determination engine, but it was ultimately looking at billions of data points, and looking for correlations that wouldn't necessarily show up or make sense. And then you're looking for clusters where the correlations would cluster around a centroid, it's called, and you're looking for distance between a given thing. You're looking for how close does this match a given cluster. And one of the applications that I'm really hoping I can work on soon is applying that to neighborhoods. The basic goal of saying, hey, how similar is this neighborhood to this? Uh-huh. I know this neighborhood.
And that gives you some safety in that you understand the investment, you understand what has to happen to make it pull its value.
Yeah, that helps you not over improve something. It's really helpful because, as you're trying to systematize renovations, you want to be able to say as quickly as possible, this is what this thing should get.
Right.
And for me, I really would love to take it a step further. In line with this, how do you scale these things? I get so frustrated and saddened, and I shouldn't, because it's not necessarily something bad that's happening, but I get so frustrated when I just see old homes torn down, for lack of a better term, and trust I've done projects that should have been torn down. It is much cheaper to build a new house than it is to restore one. I think you've done some. Yeah,
I've done some old, and I love fixing up old houses and bringing them back to glory. I haven't, not at the level of you. I've only done a couple, but so I get it at a really micro level.
Yeah, it's awesome, and it can be all that the television shows say it is. It can be a money pit. It can be.
And by the way, one property can be all those things. It can be a money pit. It can also end up making you money. It can make you pull your hair out, but make you super happy. It can do all the things.
Yeah, it's why the Chip and Joanna games. It's why the Fixer Upper thing isn't actually a model right now in the United States. Like, you can't, if you and me wanted to buy the Fixer Upper product, we can't do that.
Well, they sell a lie. I mean, they sell a bold-faced, slap in the face lie. Like, here's a $300,000 house that had $1.2 million in labor that nobody charged them for. Like, it's a lie. Totally. You can't have that house for the money that they talk about.
No, you can't. But people would love to have it. And
I'd love to have it.
Yeah. Oh, to me, that's actually a driver for what I'm working on is saying, how do we take right now, I guess what I've been kind of dogfooding and working on this last year is how do you do a reverse flipping model? Because you never see flippers don't survive a housing cycle. Usually they all go under, or they graduate and become developers. And part of that is because you have to extend yourself so much on so many properties that everything has to work in order for the model to keep working.
Yep.
That's one of the things that I'm skeptical about with the new iBuyer trend that Zillow and Redfin and a lot of these companies are doing, where it's basically you're on their website, you want to sell your house, you just press, I want to sell my house. This is where I live. And then they'll give you an offer and buy your house without a broker or anything. You don't do showings. And the idea is that these companies will use their data to buy better, but they have to kind of offer fair market. They're competing with each other. They have to offer fair market value. So if the market goes south, there's no way out of that hole.
No.
And they're buying like thousands of properties at a time right now.
Are there still? Has the market corrected? Is there still a huge glut of properties? Are we just not hearing about it anymore? Like it was all the news for a couple of years, right? When the bubble burst.
It's largely corrected. Now default behavior is still happening, and it's happening at kind of at more of the normative levels. So there are still groups that are doing this, but you're not seeing the crazy mispricing that used to be. That's not happening anymore.
That helped the flipper market too, right? Where you could buy the house for $20,000, and then if you fix it up over 6 months or a year, sell it for $200,000. That's probably gone. The range. Yeah, that's mostly gone. And so what I think could be really cool, because there's a couple loan products like the Fannie Mae Home Style Loan and the FHA 203K loan that lets you actually borrow a renovation budget. Like they base the loan on the after repaired value. And so if you're buying this fixer upper, you can get this loan product, because most people, they save up for their mortgage, and it's like, sorry, honey, like Formica countertops are staying because we don't have any money. Right.
So they do the shrug, like, yeah, this is where we live. So it's a really cool loan product, but nobody uses it. I got lunch with the Fannie Mae inspector in Seattle, and I was like, oh man, thanks for meeting with me. I'm sure you're so busy. And he was like, I have to keep a second job. He's like, I have under 10 clients for the year.
Wow.
He was like, you think about it, realtors have no incentive to push you into a home that's less than you can afford. Like they make money on the upside.
The transaction.
So percentage of the transaction. So they're trying to get you into what's the most expensive, buy that.
Right.
Contractors would way rather do some fancy, woman's kitchen and take a fat margin on that than have to deal with draws and all that stuff like that. So there's no like contractors out there pushing this product. And loan brokers can just do normal standard Fannie product and make the same amount rather than holding your hand and helping you. So then the consumer has to figure all this stuff out and find a contractor and find a broker that'll help them.
And good luck with that. Yeah, good luck with that. So we need an incentive-driven plan to get people to do it.
Yeah, you need this. Well, so I've looked into like,
well, the incentives have to be for the realtor and for the other people involved in the transactions, not for the homeowner, because the homeowner obviously wants it. They benefit from it.
Well, I've right now, and it's still got more thinking to do, but my thought is basically if you can, I've had my real estate license in Washington, I have contractor's license, not that hard to get your broker's license. If I could fee stack and all of a sudden take more per transaction and just be able to deliver the turnkey. What's really nice about it is that I'm not taking any capital risk on the project. So if I convince, Amazon employees who love this product, they watch Fixer Upper, they're the one getting underwritten for the loan. I then don't have to scale back my renovations because it's their money on the line, not mine.
Right. And the upside of the investment that the project is bringing has already been assessed.
Yeah, and they keep it, which is also nice. That's why it's kind of a reverse flipping model, because it's like, well, yeah, you get the upside. And I don't have to, I can scale this business without having to scale my capital risk.
Yeah.
Which is always the hardest thing, because then if the house goes south, well, they're already living in it and they already got approved for it. And I will say underwriting standards have improved a lot. And so they're kind of okay waiting out a couple of years for a market correction. Whereas, the flipper then just...
Right. It's a very different relationship than the flipper has. They got to get the house out of their hands immediately. The couple live there. does this type of loan, does the money get paid to a contractor, or do they give a check to the homeowner? Because it sounds like this would be ripe for fraud.
Yeah, no, it gets paid to the contractor, and it's paid in draws. So the contractor has to actually front the money, do the work, install it, and then they get reimbursed for it, which is another reason why contractors don't like it.
Well, yeah, but that's a great way to do it, because that's terrible to say, not most contractors, but most contractors people come up across will rip people off. You're a few and far between to find someone who's like, I have the best contractor. Every experience has been great.
Yeah,
most stories are a ripoff, or they won't show up, or.
It's a very, very hard thing to do. Most contractors aren't good at estimating their time, me included. They're not good at understanding how big of a problem something is. And again, like construction, it's the most non-scalar thing. You solve that one problem, and you have now solved that problem for the entire, just that house.
Yep.
And so you have to then figure it out at the next. And to me, that is a scalar problem that I get really curious about. I really like, because there are similarities, there are ways to duplicate it. And, you look at home builders, national home builders that build new product. Well, there isn't a national remodeler yet because of the scalar issue. Mm-hmm. You're building a new product, you can really get a system going. How you go in and diagnose the problems, draw a set of as-built drawings, design the new space, identify your shear walls and your load-bearing walls, assess the foundation. It's a big, big, big problem.
Yes.
But I just am so inspired, one, with the idea of extending the life of these homes, and not just, I really hate this delete culture.
Yeah. Oh, well.
Where it's like, hey, look, here's this new square box. Isn't it cool? It's like, no, it's like just tomorrow's slum.
Right. Right.
It really
10 years from now, slum.
Yeah,
the houses, they're like disposable homes.
They are. And they're like, and so the idea of trying to extend the sense of place in these neighborhoods, which is much more difficult if you're in the middle of, Dallas suburbs and they're all homogeneous model matches and they didn't exist before the 90s. That's a valid product out there. I don't think this particular model works as well because there's not as much upside. It's like, look, no, everything here sells for $204 a square foot. So if you improve the property to $208, you're still selling it for $204.
Right. And it sounds like, trying to wrap my head around it, it sounds like you're interested in taking the business to a more grassroots level where you got your GC license, you're involved, you want to be more involved with the actual rehab of the properties. But then again, you're in probably all time zones that we have in the United States, and you're across, I think you said 30 cities. So, and scale seems to be a repeating interest of yours. So you want to take a grassroots element, inject it in, and then figure out ways to efficiently scale that. Yeah,
that's a good, yes is the simple answer.
I love it. How do you do it?
How do I do it? To me, the going small thing, so most of the cities that we're in are managed from the capital side, held by, on the investment side. And there's not room in that capital model for this.
When you say investment side, do you essentially run it as different businesses? There's there's a group investing in these properties, and then there's another LLC that's related that rehabs the properties?
Yeah, precisely.
I'm digging here.
Rehab LLC is not connected to Investing LLC.
Got it.
This is a separate, basically a spinoff. And so, and it's specifically, right now we've done 5 projects on the rehab side. So it's really small.
Local to where you are?
Yeah.
So that you can touch them, see them, feel them, ring the doorbell?
Touch them, see them, feel them, feel the trades. In my mind, the goal is to try to scale to specifically master, an MSA, a city, and try to, my goal is to treat it as a consumer product. I would love to bring technology in. My vision would be that someone could buy a house like they do customizing their Mac on Apple's website where they're making some changes. They're making, because it's not actually fun to make the billion choices you need to make in a renovation. That's not actually cool. Everyone thinks it is until they like get choice fatigue and they're like, oh,
yep.
I feel like the goal would be to help people to build a relationship where they're like, okay, if these people do it, it's going to be quality. It's going to be craft. There's going to be craftsmanship. So I'm in. I'm signed up. I'll give you a deposit, find the house, and then, hey, which visual direction are we going to take this?
Yeah, I get it. It's a good. I love it. It's like I didn't mean to cut you off there. I was just like I wanted to explain that I think I see what you're saying. Where it goes back to like the Chip and Joanna Gaines, where you want your product to be a known quality, so that rather than showing someone 15 sets of tile to then they can figure out how that will go with 15 shades of wood for their cabinets, you want to show them 5 different kitchens and say, which style do you like? I'll deliver a kitchen. Yeah. Right?
Yeah.
Is that,
or even really like, okay, we're going to expand this into the house.
Well, that's what I mean. But like instead of granular tile details, you're talking about kitchen, bathroom, house, not trim and toothbrush holders. And
totally. It's one of those things where it's like, okay, that'll still be on you later in the future. Or if you want to pay for the ultra custom and you have the money, you can do it. But the letting people, in my like utopia, it's like every home is a custom home. Like everyone should customize their home. Everyone does. And so it's like, hey, let's build this product to where everyone can a little bit. Maybe you have really meager, maybe it's a $10,000 budget, but it's just enough to get that kitchen feeling where you have this really great sense of a nest and a
home.
Doors. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
That's such a special feeling. So to me, that is like, that's the driving towards. How I'm driving towards it, I'm not sure. I'm going to be making decisions here soon. This is where it kind of goes antithetical possibly to the entrepreneur blog, because I'm actively thinking about what does it look like to maybe join a company. Because as I've modeled out the opportunity, there's some scale challenges. And my experience has been, and it's just been mine as an entrepreneur and is that like, if you're raising capital, you're in the business of raising capital.
Yep.
You're not working on the business, and it sucks. It feels great, but it really kind of sucks.
Well, only the win feels great. Only like the getting the check feels great. The whole chase feels like pretty slimy.
And unless you have like the coolest iPhone thing, you're usually giving up way more than you thought you were going to be giving up. And
'cause no one thinks your idea is as good as you do.
Yeah. I feel, it's a difficult thing. I think it's really romanticized. I mean, I almost feel like it's almost over romanticized. If I were talking to somebody about starting something, it's like, it's not going to just work.
No, it's definitely not going to. That's been a recurring story with every single person I talk to, is it doesn't just work. But sometimes if you get into things young, you have to be dumb enough to think they're going to work, to try to kick the doors open and then learn those lessons.
A lot of my like decisions were based on incorrect thinking, but had I not had it, I wouldn't have done it.
For sure.
And the hard part is that a lot of the things, like I've said, like the only way to like learn how to fly is behind the yoke. Like you just can't read a book and do it. You also can't like, charter the plane and pay for the gas and sit in the back. Like you just don't care as much about turbulence until you're feeling the thing shaking and you're like, oh. Exactly.
And then it's, holy shit, I got to get this house in order. I wanted to ask you, I was kind of thinking about it, but then you brought up the whole possibly making a shift and making a change.
Yeah.
That's interesting. So what's driving that? Is it the scalability and just the it's daunting to, you don't want to get into the business of raising money. You want to stay in the business of building these assets. And I'll tell you where I'm going with the question so you can answer it however you want. But what's behind making that change? And sort of combined with what got you into business for yourself in the first place. You know, what led you out on your own, and then what would be bringing you back to the other side, so to speak?
Yeah. So I think that, let me think about how to answer that. I think that what led me out on my own was, one, just being surprised when someone was willing to write a big check for something I was doing. It was like, oh shit, like that. Okay, let's do that. And two, I was drawn by the hero myth of entrepreneurship and this stuff like that.
Like the 1% Silicon Valley story of
exactly.
Yep.
I just, the list, if it were a different environment, or maybe part two of just the incorrect thoughts that I had, are so long. And for me, they're worth at some point saying, because like, I don't think people should make them. Like, I think people should, like, it's weird because it's one of those things where you can't jump out and do it perfectly. But I think there's almost been, and I could be over picking up on this, but I feel like people have taken this fail fast, and failure has been romanticized. And I want to be like, whoa, the goal is not to fail. Like,
so it's interesting you frame it that way, because that's very different than how I look at it. But when you frame it that way, that's correct. Absolutely, the goal is not to fail. But I don't think you can get to the finish line without failures that you learn from, without failures that you move forward based on, because it makes it sound extreme, but owning a business, whether it's a small local business or some complex, huge firm, you're jumping out of a plane and you have to build the parachute before it'll open. Like you don't know. No matter how much you plan, there's a lot of stuff that you don't know that's going to come up. It's going to throw you for a loop. It's going to freak you out. And it's going to ruin a lot more than just a day. And you're going to have to figure it out. And it's not in your wheelhouse, and it's nothing you were prepared for, and it wasn't in the business plan, you know? And
totally.
That's all true. And a
lot of people don't build the parachute on the way down.
Right. They're in the squirrel suit, just aiming for something else.
It is most likely, like, the default is that you will hit the ground without a parachute.
Yep.
But I do like your point, and I think the second sentence to the failure is not the goal but it is an inevitable part. It's actually a process of learning, and you have to do it.
You have to be willing to, because failure hurts. Yeah,
and I think it's like, for me, the statement is important, because it's like, no, success is the goal. Don't be obsessed. Like, in fact, it's been an interesting shift for me, because I've recently clarified that success is a big value of mine. And I was like, because success is this word that gets used as a lot of things. And for me, the nuance, I've never felt as nuanced about it. I don't mean that I'm rich or that I have any of this stuff, whatever it is.
Right.
What I mean by successful is accomplishing the task, whatever it is, accomplishing the goal, or accomplishing
getting to the win despite the hurdles.
It's just, look, I want to be successful. If my vision is to have a good relationship with my wife, I want to be successful in that. If my vision is to go to Home Depot, I want to be successful at navigating there. I want it to be like a commitment, I guess, basically, to get to where I'm going.
Yeah.
I'll feel like there's that path.
I'll tell you, I agree. And like, so the way that translates personally for me is, and it didn't always, but it does now in the way that I operate my business. And I don't even like saying entrepreneur. I'm more interested in small business than I am entrepreneurship or any kind of hashtaggy term.
Me too, thank you.
I just like people that are, and I like business owners, people that are just out there trying to make something happen, and they're doing it. They're doing it to affect their own world and the people around them. But and that doesn't matter big or small. I just like, I like to look at it more that way. It's because business owners take grit. Entrepreneurs have fancy hair and investors.
Yeah.
That's just the way I think about it. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
The guy in the blue suit, that's not the right, like you'd never find a suit that color with the special shoes. And that's the entrepreneur. Yeah. That's not the business owner. But anyway, yeah. I'm way off track. What I was getting at was success. And when I was young, and like when this company was young, my goals were all based on financial success and, you know, being the baller. And it's not to say money's not important now, but money's one ingredient in success, and there's bigger ingredients. And like now, the reason I own a business and still own a business and don't have any intentions of not is one of the ways I pay myself, one of the ways I get success is time. And I pay myself in time, meaning I'm home at 5 and I won't see my phone again until 7:30 when the kids go to bed, or I'm at all of the games, all of the sporting events, all of the Cub Scout meetings. That's a valuable thing to me, and I pay myself in that I don't accept work in those times. That doesn't mean there's not exceptions and emergencies and things that come up, but at a 90% rate, I cover those bases by not being available, and I couldn't do that if I didn't.
I like that.
Run the joint,
I like the term paying yourself, and that's a cool way to think about it.
It helped,
and I think it's.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
It helped me to do it, to think about it that way. You know what I mean? It helped me that's part of my revenue is I'm going to go be at the hockey game.
Yeah, it's so true. And it's so true. For me, the thinking where I'm at in potentially joining a company, I think one of the thoughts that underpins what it's taught me to go out on my own and, you know, hunt for revenue and, you know, hunt for investment dollars and these things like that, is that I have had to personalize a lot more of what I want to do in my career, and my strategy is like, this is my thing I have to point to. I'm not, because I'm always being lazy in my brain, hoping that somebody else will just take me on their magic boat to wherever it is.
We all have that to a degree. You have to fight that every single day and own it.
Yeah, it's like, no, I have to. I'm the business. I'm in the business of my life, and what's missing? Like, what's in the way for me to grow on my next path? And so for me, I have. Just, recently found out that I have a baby on the way. First one.
Can't wait to meet him.
Super excited about, and know it's going to rock my world, and know that it's going to be big learning curve. And if I could find, now I'm not just going to go work for any company. For me, I'm kind of interviewing and starting conversations to see, is there a company where I can increase the skills I want to increase? And have access to data that I can't afford, and fund projects that I want to work on, without having to go raise the capital.
Right. Will it enrich your life?
Yeah. Will it enrich my life? Will it get me closer to solving this problem? Will it get me? An old mentor and investor and boss said, for him, the secret to his success has been that he's always one person away from the answer, and that for him, the question is always who. And I think that there's some limitations to that approach, but it is powerful for him. He's to constantly be thinking, who's better at this than me? Let me go connect with them. And so in my mind, the other part is if I can find
that's a good exercise in ego that he's gone through too, where he's not, I'm the best of this, everyone should learn from me. He's always seeking out what's better than him, just admitting I'm not the king of this hill. Yeah. You don't start there. At least most people don't start there.
I think it's a really powerful one. And so for me, that's who's the company out here that's maybe a couple of steps along in this process. I think I've got to set my expectations that it won't be the vision I want. Like I won't be able to go all the way. Maybe I can go part of the way, but part of it is from a lifestyle standpoint. I've talked to some of my mentors and it's like, look, if you go hard trying to scale this business and try to raise some of this capital, you're not going to be a dad.
Yeah.
Like you're going to be a father a little bit, but you're going to be implicitly asking everybody in your world to pick up your slack. And
that's a real thing to think about, right? I mean,
yeah,
that's where like, the point of the show, or the whole reason I'm interested in small business, is I am by no means saying everyone should start a business or be in small business. This show is just for the people who sort of have always wanted to and haven't sort of gotten the kick in the pants to do it. If it's right for you, it's right for you. And where I like the thing back to where I pay myself in time, there's also a lot of business owners who cannot draw a line in the sand, and their time is ravaged by owning a business, and they might be better off at a 9 to 5 and having a work-life balance.
Most of my experience is that weekends aren't weekends. Even if I'm like taking time off, I'm playing whatever problem over in my head a million times, because I know I'm the only person who can solve it.
Right. So it's affected your life in different ways, and some of the ways that it's affecting it now, you're not sure you want to bring into the family home.
Yeah, I think that I will. Basically, I think for me, I've said, whether I start this, I want to see this happen in the world, and whether I start it with 100% of the equity, or I get some equity allocation over time, or, I'm less of a piece of it. I want to be working on that problem. I want to be getting better at that process.
Yeah.
And at some point, maybe I hit a wall with a group I'm working with, and I go out and I start it again, but with better relationships, with better, for me, and
some more knowledge, right? Some more information.
And I don't necessarily view it as to me, I like having the approach of I'm going to own another business. I'm going to do this again. With another, but for me, it's almost like working for a company is a pivot towards, okay, well, this is the scenario in my life, and I want to be there more for my kids. And I also want to be, have access to data and have access to certain things that I know it'd be difficult to raise the money for, saying, hey, $250,000 of your capital is going to go towards buying data.
Right.
Cool.
Yeah. I mean, for sure. But to like the bigger side of your point, not the bigger side, but one of the more emotional sides of the point, emotional internally, is I don't think owning a business is cooler or less cool. I don't think it makes you better or worse. I don't think there's this cachet that, owning the business is better than working at the business. But I know a lot of people who work in regular jobs who are happier than a lot of people that own businesses. Now, on the flip, I know a lot of people that own businesses that are, really enjoying life as well. It's the person. It's not whether or not you own a business. It's whether you own the business, and then whether you manage that business in a way that it would work for your life. Like mine hasn't always enabled me, but it's at a place now where it is. But it's been 19 years. It didn't happen overnight, and it took a lot of introspective thinking. And I give up certain things, like, if I were pushing 80 hours a week and never didn't take a call and sure, I'd probably have more customers who would be paying me more money, or the business would be bigger, but I don't want to live that way. Right. So then I have to figure out what's the balance where I want to take it. And it's not a badge of, it is, there's a badge of honor to owning it, because you take a certain amount of pride that you built something, but I don't have any issue, and I don't think people should take issue with what's right at what point in their life, and whether or not now is the time to open the business. Yeah.
I think that there's it. I could say with a lot of confidence, it will create more problems than it solves for maybe ever, or for at least a while. I don't think anyone should be expecting that it's going to relieve problems.
Well, it depends on what problems, doesn't it? I mean, because I have conversely, I also have a lot of friends in regular jobs who have, even if they're not openly talking about it or reviewing it, they have problems that I wouldn't want. Meaning they're gone from 7 a.m. till 7 or 8 p.m. They're at work.
Totally.
And that's a problem I don't want, because I fit a lot of shit in my day that between 7 and 7 that isn't work, that is for me.
Yeah.
That's I go to the gym, I go to jujitsu, I'm with my kids. I do all kinds of stuff in those hours because I'm flexible to build it. It's Jenga. Whereas some people, it's not. You check in, and until you check out, you're there. And there's a lot of problems that come with that too.
Yeah, no, it's so true. Have you seen that show, The Good Place?
Yes, yeah.
Really, really
It's funny.
The character, I think it's Jason, who's from Jacksonville. He has this great line where he's like, he's praising Molotov cocktails, and he's like, no, trust me, they always work, because whenever I have a problem, I throw one, and then boom, I have another problem, or I have a new problem.
Every time.
And I feel like that's how business is. It's like, oh, and then I started a problem, then boom, I had a new problem.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And I feel like it's important to weed out this idea that, it's like, no, there's more of a struggle. The struggle is real.
Oh, yeah. You have to want the struggle. You have to be the kind of person that embraces the struggle. It's no set it and forget it.
The business will then become tethered by you.
Mm-hmm.
And so all of your personal issues will become the business issues. And you're the pace setter. I had a good friend write this post recently, and he owns a great construction company on the East Coast. And it was something about like, a post to thank everybody who's worked for me. And then he proceeded to list all of the bosses he had and business owners he'd worked for before he started his own business.
Mm-hmm.
It was like, I always thought I worked for you, but I didn't realize when I screwed up, you made less profit or no profit. When I was out sick, you were still paying everything.
Mm-hmm.
Like you were organizing, you were setting up so many dominoes that I didn't realize you were setting up, that you were really working for me. Man, it's a good exercise to realize who you're working for.
Yeah.
Because when you're working for yourself, it's not really the right term. It's like, no, I'm working.
Well, that's a lie.
Yeah.
You work for your clients.
Yeah, you work for your clients. You work for your vendors on a certain level, because if you don't have the revenue to pay them, like you're hurting a lot of other people. Like,
and you might be out of business if they stop giving you what you need to make your product or whatever it is that you sell. If you sell if your business is based on getting things from a vendor and then putting those out to the consumer, and you can't pay the vendors, you're not in business. It's over.
Yeah.
It's over. Yeah. So
it's like everything is higher stakes, and I think for me, it's like with this value of success, pivoting to, and again, it's not a foregone conclusion, but that's where my thinking is leading me right now.
Mm-hmm.
Is just a way to accomplish my goal. It's just a way to be successful, because for me, it's like, okay, the business of me needs different variables right now. So if I don't switch revenue models, this new one is going to be more costly than I want right now.
Yeah, no, I love it. And I love the authenticity of you sharing it too, where you're, and it's not a purely fiscal or revenue based decision. Your impending son is one of the big catalysts for making this decision too. That's real life. That's you can't get more real life than that.
No, it's weird, because I've had so much advice of like, oh, make sure that you've got all this started so that when because once you have kids, it's going to be a lot harder to make this decision. And I know that like, if I break off, then later I'll have to kind of relearn I'll have to relearn stuff where I'm like, oh yeah, this is how it used to feel.
Yeah.
When I didn't have a paycheck coming in, and this is how it used to feel when I had to set these targets and these goals. And,
mm-hmm.
So that'll happen, but I also think I'm more aware that I'm spending my life than ever. Like I'm more aware that I never get this decade back.
Yep.
That everything it's just memories from here on out when I look back at what I'm doing.
Yep. And the only thing that's going to matter is how you spend those memories.
Yeah. And so in my mind, increasing my skills, increasing my relationships, being there as a dad, that's meaningful. And that's potentially more meaningful than I used to just have this glory mentality, like, oh, I'm just going to figure it all out and I'll come to the end. And so for me, it's just a shift, but one that I hope will enable me to solve the problem more effectively, because it's bigger than just I can do.
You're preaching to the choir, man, and there's no right answer. There's only the answer for you. But like 10 years ago, I had no kids and I was chasing the glory, and I had no hobbies. I had friends, I had my wife, and I had my business, and that, I mean, I'm simplifying, but that was my life.
Yeah,
and I looked deeper and started to figure out, who do I want to be, and what kind of dad do I want to be, and what, in 30 years, what do I want to be looking back at? And now I probably have too many hobbies, most of which I share with my kids and with my wife every time I can get her to take part with us, So we do a lot of things as a family, and there's a lot of activities that we do. We all mountain bike, we all snowboard, we all do martial arts, we all do archery, we all do things, and we do them together. And they're good, discipline building things that build bonds, because you have to work towards them, even though if you don't know you're working, like riding down a difficult mountain bike trail. It's hard, but it's fun as well too. So the kids don't have to think about the fact that they're learning. But like, I can look back now I'm 44. I can look back at my mid 30s and then now, where I have all kinds of hobbies that enrich my life. And it's because I've changed the way I view success, to your earlier point, and the way of what I'm going to pull out of this time.
Yeah, how you're going to get there. I think it's that insistence of like, I'm going to get there. I'm going to get that's that value of success for me, is that it basically makes the failure, it turns it into the learning, because I'm like, no, I have to keep going. I have to figure out something, because you just have to take your whelps in business.
Yes. But it doesn't mean you have to continue to take the whelps you're taking. You can't hit a reset button like you're debating, where you might continue to take them and figure it out. And I'm sure I have confidence you would figure it out. But maybe the better move, you'll have to figure it out. Maybe the better move is to step out, to then one day step back in at a better place and to figure things out. Who knows? I'm not saying that the right answer is not, or to do it. Only you know.
No, I think one thing that I would say, and my career path hasn't followed this, but I would say this is that, one, I feel like most people should go get a skill on somebody else's dime. They should the world doesn't need another graphic designer fresh out of college or something like that. You could do it, but go to an agency, go build those relationships. I heard recently that the most successful businesses are started by people in their 40s, which I thought was interesting.
I've seen that fact.
There are these outliers, but it's kind of, I would almost if I was cautioning my kids, get pretty decent at something, and have the patience to get better at it and get better and better, and pivot if you need to.
Oh yeah.
And if you're wanting to, and do pivot. I think it's fantastic, and get fascinated. Don't necessarily if you're obsessed with something, keep, follow those breadcrumbs.
Yeah. I mean, that's what life's about, is if you can become obsessed with something, especially some healthy obsession, that's just something really interesting, you're passionate about, go that route. That's going to be a way better life.
Yeah. And I think for me, it's if there was a litmus test of jump out on your own, I'd be go get a customer while you're in your job, get somebody. It can be fake. You can tell them after the fact, sorry, I'm not selling it right now. Price is too high, whatever. Mm-hmm. With this, I was buying some Facebook ads just to see and I got overwhelming support where people were yes, I will, if I can buy the Chip and Joanna Gaines model, I will buy. Mm-hmm. I was okay, I validated, but get a customer, and, don't be skeptical of seminars or consultants or these people that are going to help you do it, because
there's so many of those out there where, pay for access to my video, or I'm going to give you all the secrets to insert industry here. It's a bunch of horseshit. There's nothing to it. The one thing I try to teach my kids, whether or not they become business owners, whether or not they're entrepreneurs, which of course I would like to see, just because I like the freedoms that it enables me. But whether or not they do, I don't care. The passion, and then the understanding that really it's grit that makes things work, whether or not it's your own business or you're working a great job like a marine biologist for some university. it's going to be grit that sets you apart from the next person. It's not 100%. Luck. It's not your ideas, because everybody has ideas. It's grit. Can you make your idea real?
Yeah, I think that's 100% the answer. It's grit. It's one more set, and it's doing it again.
Yeah, totally.
And it's like, when you've worked hard. Like,
for sure. And because you can feel it, and you can feel a relief from the pressure, because you're like, all right, it might not work. That might fail, but I did what I could do. I put it all on the table. Yeah.
To me, that's where there's value. And that is also the payoff. That's also the doing it. So
that's another part of the success.
Yeah. It's just, I try to remind myself on a lot of this stuff that I'm accomplishing. It's like, but it's not because it's building this. It's not for the future payoff thing. It's not like that, oh man, we could build this and then sell it to somebody. It's that actually accomplishing it, feeling that, like, the endorphins after a late night.
Yep.
Is actually the payoff. And that's okay. Mm-hmm. That's okay. I just got paid in the like, I didn't think I could, and then somehow I broke through.
Yep, I couldn't agree more. It's that feeling of success. It's like you mentioned, the one more rep. It's that. It's going beyond where you thought you could, and all of a sudden you're a new person with new possibilities, because you can do things you didn't think you could do. That's a great feeling.
Yeah, I think it's a great, and I think it's harder than ever, because you have to build. The whole getting a customer thing is important, because it's like, there's a lot of industries that are shrinking. There's a lot of things where it's like, you can do that, but you're going to be, right now, if you're going to start a mechanic shop, like, you can do that. But that, we've mostly solved that problem. Like, that's
right.
You can start a small farm. We've mostly solved that problem. So just being willing to accept that fact and being like, okay, so it's, I still might pursue it, but it's either capped, or it's like this whole, like, the whole scalar world that we're living in thing. I think it's confusing for everybody.
Yeah. And there's ways to pull value out that are not monetary. Like you mentioned, a farm. If you have a small farm and you're self-sustained with your family and getting enough to get by, that might be a really rewarding existence, to not be a part of the commerce train.
Yeah.
I don't know. I've never done it, but I can see the allure, and I can see that as being a way to succeed.
Well, I think the allure part is the part that I would most want to shine a light in and say, like, yeah, it might be alluring, but you should realize that you might make $21,000 a year. Mm-hmm. And which is kind of great, and kind of like, because you're like, well, you don't have to buy food and all these other things. And that might be true. Right. But you might realize that that's actually, that you're romanticizing something that's really effing hard. Really effing hard.
But you also might get enough reward out of working that hard that it gives your life some meaning. It depends on you. There's no one ingredient. Like, you look at those people on the, that Alaska show on one of those networks where it chronicles like 5 different people living in Alaska in different capacities or different parts of the wilderness, where some of them are just like alone, hunting moose with a gun and dragging it back to their shack they built themselves, and they love it. Holy shit! That's not even a world that I understand or makes any sense, but I get the allure. I can see the appeal.
Why they would make the decision?
Yeah, I can 100% see it. It looks amazing. I'm just not going to do it.
Yeah, 100%. I think maybe as I'm talking this out with you, I'm realizing the thing I would push on with people is, it's like, one, like, there's actually a guy in Boston I met. Did you ever have Pretty Things Ale? So he was this really successful brewer, like a major brewery in England. Met his wife. She was a Harvard researcher, and met her at a beer festival, and they got married. She quit that, and they made beer together. And he quit his really prestigious, like, it was a huge brewery, like one of those. And he was like a big name, and they just made beer together, and and I was trying to talk about capital and scale, and who I connected with. I loved their product. Mm-hmm. And he was like, I've had all of this stuff before, and I've had hundreds and hundreds of employees. And he was like, and right now I get to make beer, and I live in Cambridge, and I get to finish and have beer at night with my wife, and we like it, and we sit on the porch until it gets dark. And that's all I want.
Yeah, there's a lot for that.
Businesses anymore. He was like, I only have projects. He was like, so I call this Pretty Things Ale project. And he was like, I know that I'm going to shut it down in the next 5 years. And I mean, they had like, people were trying to distribute them all over the country. And it was like, they had so much crazy demand. And he did. You can't get it anymore. It doesn't exist anymore. He shut it down.
That's amazing.
And I thought, man, what a cool thing to like prep people. Hey, call them projects.
Imagine what that feels like to know, like there's no pressure, like regardless of how good this goes, I'm done in 5, I'm checking out. I can't even wrap my head around that.
And I'm going to have to do something new. I'm going to have to do a new thing. And I don't know what it is. I might have to get good at something again. I might be bad at something again. I'm going to have to get new customers. Chances are it'll be related. To me, that's setting some better expectations to help you be more successful, where it's like,
keeps you learning, which keeps you moving forward.
I'm going to have to pivot. This is not my ticket where I'm going to like, so anyways, that's why I'm sitting on my own yacht. What's your name again? It's like that and that's okay. It's okay that we're going to have you're going to have 8 more careers before you, have enough to give up a little bit and tell everybody you retired, but really you just stop making money.
Right.
That's okay.
That's the beautiful thing about what I've been doing is, my industry it's different every year anyway, but I also chase things that interest me. So it's like I start a new business every year. It's radically different. It's always doing and exploring new parts of the digital world that are fascinating to me. And then it's selling clients on enabling through technology, whatever I can help make happen for the business. But we don't sell Facebook ads. We don't do Google ads or optimization.
Yeah.
We don't, there's a place for all of that. It just doesn't interest me at all. So we don't do that.
Yeah.
We do the creative application of digital technologies to increase relationships between the brand and its consumers. I want to take the distance away from the brand and the people and start to, that's my whole goal is, I don't know, there's a different answer for all clients and for what their needs are, but I want to create the relationship, an actual relationship, not serving ads and then selling widgets. So that keeps me interested. That keeps every project's kind of fun and cool.
Yeah. And it does, it keeps that truth of that your job is, you're getting a new job every year.
Oh yeah, for sure. Or otherwise I'd go insane anyway. I'm not capable of like a status quo. My head would pop.
Yeah.
Not saying that's a good thing. It's just that I'm insane. So I have to keep things changing.
Yeah. You're in touch with the kind of insane that you are.
Right. I've accepted it because it's here. So
you've hacked it to where that's working as for you as it can.
Right.
So,
all right. So I want to stop here because I know you have to go, and I don't want to drag this on. It's already been an hour and a half. It goes by really, really fast. So let's just sign off here and talk about doing a next one in a little while. We can talk about maybe where your decision ends up and the road down there.
For sure. It's fun.
All right. 1 second.